And welcome to Welcome Home Radio. The waters in the mortgage industry can be pretty muddy, whether it's investing, leasing, renting, home insurance, or myths and misconceptions. Welcome Home Radio has the answers for you, the consumer. And now, to help you make the right home buying decision for you and your family, here are your hosts.
And welcome to Welcome Home Radio, where real estate lending and learning come together. This is your mortgage market update for August the 5th. Hey, stocks are almost 200 points higher today, despite the disappointing ADP employment numbers. The ADP reported yesterday 167,000 job creation in the month of July. Now, that's much lower than the 2 million expected in the news, but that's not the whole story. June reported we had 2.4 million jobs created, and quite an adjustment for June, because June they went back and readjusted that number to 4.3 million created in June. Therefore, the lower July numbers. But again, this is huge information for the market. I don't know why the reporting is happening this way. Maybe they're trying to hide the numbers, but the stock market is reacting very positively. The MBA reported their application data for last week. Overall volume fell 5% in June. Therefore, and purchases were down 2% and refis were down 7%. CoreLogic, we can hear you, Christian. CoreLogic can release their home price report index for June. It appears home prices increased 1%. They're also forecasting an increase in July, but only 0.1%. And the fall and over the next 12 months, they're reporting a potential reduction of 6.6%, or a fall or a decrease. That is interesting. We're going to see home values possibly go down. Black Knight reports that home buyers were able to afford over $32,000 more than last year in purchasing power. The purchasing power rose over 10%. Even with the rising home prices, the low rates are offsetting those gains in home pricing, and affordability is increasing. This is a very different story than you're hearing in the media today. Schwab Retirement Services reported that the 401k participants finding a change in mindset for they're desiring an increase in what they believe it is to retire, a 12%. They think 1.7 a year ago, now it's $1.9 million is needed to retire. The COVID-19 has caused many to rebalance their portfolios, increase their contribution rates to meet this change. Many participants cited a refi to a lower rate that was very impactful, or a debt consolidation help that has paid off all the debt in the mortgage. Rates are really still at historical lows, and appears the plan is to keep them there through 2021. This is huge news for all homeowners, home buyers, and of course those leading in to retirement. With the need to watch cost in every category, today's discussion will focus on home insurance, understanding the cost, understanding the tools that are available to you, and why those costs are there. So welcome our day. Of course, always joining us, Alan Pace with Fathom Realty. How you doing, Alan? Great to have you, brother.
Doing well, man. How you doing?
Oh, man, it's been an interesting week. Again, I just handed my grandson back to my son this morning. It was hard. He stayed with us for 5 days. It was a wonderful time. But it's, grandchildren are great because you can give them back, of course. That's always the fun part. Hey, and joining us today, of course, my good friend Christian Ford with Goosehead. How you doing, Christian?
Doing great. How about you guys? Thanks for having me.
Wonderful to have you here. And we're going to talk insurance today, because home insurance, a lot of people coming from renting, coming from different markets, they don't understand the insurance and the cost, the liability, all those sorts of things. So I want to get us started, and we have a lot of questions to go over with you right off the bat. We talked credit last week. Credit is very important in being able to refinance, being able to buy a home. Is credit different in insurance, or does it impact your scores or your rates? Give us an overall view. Mark's kind of trying to understand that.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's credit plays along with what you call an insurance score. So insurance looks at it's a soft hit on your credit, doesn't take a hard look at it, but it does play into it. So obviously the better your credit is, the better your insurance score is.
Okay, so let's stop right there. What you just said, and I'm going to try to hear this, the better your credit scores, the lower the cost of the insurance. Is that what I understand?
Exactly. Yep. It increases your insurance score, which it's, obviously, helps your insurance decrease in price. So better insurance score, better prices.
So that's why one person can have a different rate, even though it's the exact same home, exact same situation, because of credit scores. Is that what I'm saying?
Absolutely. If you put two homes next to each other, but it's two different people buying it, there could be two totally different rates just based off of that.
Is that the same for rentals?
For rentals?
Same thing there?
Well, it depends. Renters. Yeah, for the most part, renters insurance. If you're talking about that, you're just covering your contents, what you've moved into the home. That can impact there as well. Not as much if they look into that, but definitely can have an impact.
So what does it mean? I've heard this term, dealing with insurance and scores and so forth. What is an umbrella? I've heard the term, but I don't know what it is.
Yeah, so that's yeah, rain umbrella. So an umbrella is going to be an extra $1 million. And most people only have $1 million unless you have a little bit higher net worth and stuff. But it's an extra $1 million in liability coverage to cover you everywhere you go. Now, there's a couple different types of umbrellas. So you've got your umbrella for just a premises only, or you've got a full umbrella that will cover your premise. It will also cover you while you're driving your car. And that's the one that you're wanting more often. But liability is something where, if you're at fault for something, that gives you're liable for it. So that also opens you up to lawsuits and different things like that. So if someone is suing you, your homeowner's liability tends to be needs to be more than the value of what your house is. So if you've got, I write liability of $500,000 on your homeowners. If you've got a house that's worth more than $500,000, then you need a $1 million umbrella over that to cover your whole asset.
I'm not understanding. You can buy insurance that allows you it goes with you, it travels with you, whether you're on vacation, business. Is that what I understand you saying? Is that this coverage not only for your home, but for you personally?
Yes, sir. Exactly. So and I guess I should explain that a little better. Your liability on your homeowner's insurance doesn't just take care of you at home. It follows you wherever you go. It follows you if you're at the store, if you're out at softball practice, if you're anywhere. So an extreme example is if, we had a case where someone hit a softball, hit someone in the head, coma, unfortunately, right? It's a terrible situation, but they had $1 million umbrella. So, the $500,000 on your homeowner's insurance is actually going to cover that gentleman that's in a coma. It's going to cover their medical bills while they're there. If it goes over that, then you're still liable for whatever it is extra while they're in the hospital. So that $1 million will kick in over the $500,000, giving you $1.5 million in liability for your homeowner's insurance.
And this is homeowner's insurance. This is not auto. This is not renting. I mean, because I didn't know we were getting into this thing with that question of umbrella. That's amazing.
Yeah. Well, the question I have about it, how did you linked auto with the home earlier? How do those two link up when you said the umbrella covers you in your car? How is that different from your auto insurance, which you probably sell both to the same people, right?
Yeah, for the most part, yeah. Package deals are probably where you save the most money, or you put them home and auto together. Now, your liability on your car insurance is going to cover you while you're driving. Your home insurance covers you everywhere else except when you're driving and except when you're at work, because corporate or commercial insurance covers you at work. Auto insurance covers you while you're in the car. If you're in an at-fault accident, your liability, you have to cover the other person's, like the other car that you hit, it covers their medical bills. So your liability covers that vehicle, and then the umbrella would come in to cover over on top of that.
I had heard that, especially in towns like LA or Atlanta or Dallas or Houston or those kind of towns, a lot of expensive cars running around these cities.
Yeah.
And if we hit one, a lot of us aren't covered, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So you've got
What?
different levels of coverage, right? So there's the state minimum limits in Texas. If we're just going off of Texas, because it differs in every state. Your state minimum limits in Texas are 30, 60, 25. So what that means is it's 30,000 per person in the other car for liability to cover their medical bills. 60,000 total if there's more than one person in that car. But that still follows the 30,000 per person limit. So you can still only go up to 30, even though there's 60,000 in total coverage, and then 25,000 in property damage. So if you're covered there, you hit a brand new G-Wagon or whatever, 25,000 isn't going to cover a $115,000 car.
Who pays the rest?
You do. Yep, you are liable.
Mr. Thomas, that's why I brought this up. Dallas is very prominent in fancy cars.
It is. Yep, you are liable. Sorry.
I don't need to drive around in a vehicle that costs more than my home.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if you hit one, you're not covered.
Yeah. So that also plays in a little bit into the insurance score along with credit. So the higher your liability limit, so you've got 30, 60, 25 is your minimum. You've got 50, 150, which is where I'm actually required to write one step above. I can't go to state minimums at our so we have to cover one step above.
Christian, you're going in and out on your voice at times. I don't know if there's a problem, but we're catching little tidbits there.
Okay, sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, it sounds good. Hey, we got another question. Lisa has asked, does my policy cover actual cash value or replacement cost? So that's a great question. Dealing with home, out-of-pocket cost, whatever. What happens to the home when you have a coverage? Is it actual just cash to you and then you spend it, or is it replacement cost to rebuild the home?
I'm sorry, it kind of cut in and out there. I don't know if that's me or not, but I think you're asking about replacement cost versus actual cash value on the dwelling itself.
Yes. Does my policy cover actual cash value or replacement cost is Lisa's question.
Okay. So yeah, there's a couple different ways to look at that. If you, there's different levels of policies. Most everybody is going to cover a replacement cost on the dwelling. Where you run into that more is going to be replacement cost on the roof. But if you have an actual cash value policy, that means they're going to depreciate. They're going to depreciate your home based off of the year it is. So when you start running into, you've got a 1960 home, and I can't tell you the exact schedule, but there's a schedule of depreciation, kind of like a car. You drive off the lot, you lose 20% the value in it, right? Well, the longer you live in the home, it may go up in value in taxes and things like that, but the brick doesn't hold its value the way, the value of your land or home would, right? So there's a depreciation schedule on that. Now, when you're looking at roofs, and I'd have to look at a certain policy to be able to tell you if it's covering full replacement cost or not. So I can't tell you off the bat how that works with your current one unless I'm looking at it. But on the roof, in general, if you're looking at, you got about 15 years of full replacement cost on most roofs, unless you're locked in to that policy, starting there. If it's older than 15 years, then most of the time you're going to get a depreciation schedule. A lot of things when it comes to I won't name the companies, but you've got some companies that automatically at 5 years it's going actual cash value. Doesn't matter what you do, unless you're paying extra and a lot extra for that cost. So you've got to be on your toes on that one and making sure you're asking and verifying that, hey, I'm locked in at full replacement costs for the lifetime of my roof. If I make a claim on it, I want a brand new one. I don't want to have to pay a deductible for you to pay for 20% of my roof, and then I got to pay for the other 80. So that's something you got to stay on top of.
Let me ask a question here. Who sets the standard or the limits that you need to write to? Because a homeowner may say, I want the minimum coverage. but they have a mortgage with somebody who between the lender and the actual owner, the borrower sets those limits for you.
So for me, it's actually Goosehead has standards that I have to write by, which like is probably the best thing for us. So I have to write at least 85 a square foot. If a borrower or an insured asks me to go below that, I have to kindly ask them or kindly say, I would love to do that, but I can't. You're going to have to find somewhere elsewhere, because we don't want to get into a situation where, okay, you wanted less than 85 a square foot. That actually puts you into what you call a co-insurance. So you pay 20% of whatever the value of the claim is, and the company pays for 80%. So we don't want to have to get into that. So we require 85 square foot. Now, if the lender is requiring loan value, then we have to, that's something that you got to work on. You got to get the value of the home up to cover the lender's standards on a home closing.
So I have a question about roofs. As a realtor, we run into this all the time. Your listing inspector inspects, says there's hail damage. So a roofer comes out and looks, and generally they see hail damage, the roofers. So then the next step is to get the insurance company out there. And if the insurance company comes out, their person, and says, we're not going to total it, we don't see enough damage here to do anything right now. Does that mean the roof is insurable for a potential buyer?
Okay, that's a hard question.
I run into that, and it's difficult to answer it.
Yeah, it's very difficult to answer, and most companies are going to send out somebody after the fact, after you've closed on the home, to take a look at it. So it's like you don't really know, other than the word of someone saying like, okay, well, this roof was replaced in 2017. It's got some damage on it, and we're not going to total it out in that kind of scenario. We'll replace it. But if you write for the buyer, you write a new policy. They close on August 31st. The new home insurance has 60 days to come out and look at it and tell you, okay, this roof is insurable or not. And if they tell you it's not, at that point, they're going to tell you either need to replace this or find insurance elsewhere, for the most part.
So the seller's done already. They already got their money. They're rolling down the road.
And the lender's already closed on the loan.
Exactly.
What's going to happen there, because the lender requires insurance on that property?
Yeah, so that's where like we come into play. I've got 30 different carriers I can write with, so I can kind of evaluate that situation, look at the roof, see if it's something that we can work with still, and move them to a different carrier that will still give them a good price and still give them coverage on the home.
Well, then let's talk about that, guys. That's a great question, Alan, because who has priority here? An inspector says the roof needs to work. A roofing company comes out and says, no, this doesn't need to be totaled. It's still workable. We can do some repairs. Doesn't the roofer experience and that business cover that liability if they state those claims?
There's a couple things. One, foundations are the same thing. You get a foundation guy coming out, they're going to find something wrong with it. A roofer guy is going to come out. There's no such thing as a perfect roof in the state of Texas, or at least in Dallas-Fort Worth with the hail we get. They're all dinged up. So it's a case of buyer beware, at least in my opinion. Buyer has to, that's why they have an option period in their contract. You get your people up there, you look at it. At that point, a good buyer agent would be telling their buyer to do the clue report, obviously, right? We want to know if there's any damage to it. Somebody didn't, got money and didn't do the repairs, so on and so forth. They'll see a roof claim in there, and that'll be something. The other thing is, when you're working with a potential buyer, they're excited as all get out. They don't care about the stinking roof. If it ain't leaking in their kitchen while they're having breakfast with their kids, they don't care about hail dings. Now, the only people that care about them are people that are lending them money and insurance companies that have to cover them. As a person, I'm like other people. I don't care less. I'll guarantee you the roof I'm under right now has hail damage. I heard it. So, and I do probably need to put a claim in pretty soon. It's, 10 years old, 11 years old. So it's probably time to do that. But when it comes to the mentality of a seller and a buyer, a seller just wants their money. And I've got a roof is being put on right now. It was totaled. But any seller with a totaled roof identified by an inspector, and then your insurance comes out and says, oh, yeah, I'm totaling it. The gutters, some window screens, so on and so forth, all that gets totaled. Well, you're either going to put the roof on for this buyer, or if this buyer opts out, either for financing or option period, you're going to have to do it anyway. So that's kind of where that is. If the roof is not totaled, that's the tricky part in the whole equation. Only if the buyer makes it so, because the seller doesn't have many options other than coming out of their pocket to fix something. The insurance company says, I don't think we need to do anything. But yet a buyer can say, I'm opting out, or that kind of a thing. So there's a lot of emotion here you deal with. You're dealing with money, you're dealing with emotion. And the roof is a very tricky thing.
Well, we got another one. Jim has asked the question, am I covered no matter how my home is damaged, period?
So that's also another tricky question, right?
Not with a meth lab. If it's a meth lab, you ain't covered. You better get his email.
Yeah. So there's a couple different policy types. There's what you call an open peril policy, which covers everything except 9 exclusions. And there's what you call it.
You broke up. What was that, Christian? What kind of policy?
So there's an open peril policy, which covers everything except a set list of 9 exclusions. And then there is a broad peril policy on homes, which covers about 16 things and everything else is excluded. So you would prefer to have the open peril policy, right? Which is the kind of policies that we right here. And that's going to be what you either call an HO3 or an HOB policy. Those are the best types of policies you can have. 9 exclusions.
What are the differences? You're talking your lingo.
Yeah.
My person and me don't understand.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting to. So like your open peril policies are those 2 types of policies. That means that everything is covered except these 9 exclusions. So.
And what are those 9 exclusions?
Yeah, they're war and nuclear disaster. So that's a little wild, right?
Sorry, Beirut.
Wear and tear.
You're not going to get your home replaced. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, exactly. That's just an unfortunate event. You got what general wear and tear on the home. So if you got paint chips, you got to paint your own house. That kind of thing. There's just stuff that happens as a home gets old that you got to take care of.
Christian, we are so blessed to be. You were interrupted by Tom Hume, our wonderful teacher. What in the world are you doing?
And I've missed Mr. Lincoln too.
There you go. And I put up some horses. I've got all sorts of stuff now behind me as well. So I am just so excited to join you guys today. I got out just to I had control of my class today, so I could actually let them out a little bit early. I know I'm a little bit late, but that's kind of typical for me no matter what.
Always a pleasure to have you here, sir.
But I was excited to hear about Christian being here today, and I thought, this would be a good day to kind of join the party.
There you go.
Yeah.
Great. Well, he's educating us on what is covered and what is not, because we had a question from Jim. I'll go repeat it real quick. Am I covered no matter what home part is damaged? And Christian was trying to open that depending on the policy. Let me see if I got it right. Open policy and what?
So open peril policy or broad peril policy.
Okay, and open peril policy covers everything but 9 things. So what are those 9 things?
So the war and the nuclear disaster we just went over, general wear and tear on your home that you just have to keep up on. So rust, mold, and mold is speaking of black mold spores, things that you kind of have some upgrades on in the building community, so you don't really see black mold.
Wow. Oh, I played my organ today. By the way, Christian, I played the organ during your presentation.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I was like, oh.
Hey, real quick, before you get going again, Christian, I want to say hi to Deb. Great to have you listening, Deb. And if you have any questions, you are so right about people get their hearts set on a new roof, new desire. But so glad you're here, Deb. Wonderful to have you. And if you have any questions, please put them right there in your comments section. Go ahead, Christian. With the people in Beirut aren't covered today.
Yeah.
They wake
Oh,
up.
man, no joke.
I'm telling you, drug laboratory people ain't covered either.
Yeah, no, they're not. Yeah, so that falls under intentional acts. So arson, having your own drug factory in your own house, that kind of thing.
Tom, are you listening?
I'm writing this down, actually.
Yeah.
By the way, those houses are in every neighborhood. Everyone has a drug fabrication house somewhere. Nice neighborhoods, average neighborhoods. I've actually showed a house that had to be, they had to, disclose that that's what had happened, and the bank owned it. It was unbelievable. I was wearing a mask way before masks were even in.
Is that home insurable?
If the bank owns it?
Yeah, I mean, well, if with the history that they just disclosed, a meth lab was inside the home, is that type of home able to be insurable?
Yeah, it still is. As long as it's fixed and updated, like if it blew up and the house is still burnt to a crisp, that's not a thing you're going to insure, right? But as long as it's all cleaned up inside and it's not just like, I don't know, the home isn't just open to the elements in some spaces, then you should be fine. Yeah.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Okay. So what are these other 9 things?
The last, intentional acts, governmental actions, which is, something like the police are kicking your door in, it's none of my business, obviously, but you got to take that up with the police to fix your door or yourself, one of the two. And then, I guess more commonly is probably the fire department. If they're coming putting a fire at your house and they knock over the fence, you can't claim that on your home insurance. What
about the hole in the roof that they punch in there to put the fire out?
Yeah, I would think that would be covered under the fire. That's a little different, but it's like other stuff like on the outside.
So you're going to repair my roof and repair my home, but you're not going to repair my fence because of the fire.
Or sorry, I say that like the neighbor's fence. Yeah, so the fire department, they've got to come up with that kind of thing. So I don't. It's a little bit iffy on that sense, but then and the last 2 are flood and earthquake. So flood insurance you can write on a separate policy, but it's not covered under any homeowner's insurance policy. Same for earthquake. You can have an endorsement for earthquake, but you generally write that on a separate policy.
So let's take flood conversation a little bit because it is critical. I mean, correct me, Tom, every loan needs a flood cert. Don't they need a flood cert to be approved and underwritten?
To be sold. Yeah.
To be sold.
To be sellable.
So again, a flood cert is being done. And now to help our listeners understand, flood insurance is not paid to you, Christian. It is really paid to the federal government. Is that correct?
Yeah, for the most part, FEMA runs it. But there are a few private flood carriers that we have that, if it's underneath a certain depth, then they'll take it. And it'll be a little bit less than FEMA, but for the most part, yeah, it is the federal government.
And that is a requirement payment we can't change. It's put on there and it's a part of the mortgage. And a lot of times, at least early in my career, this was found out later in the process. We like to do it up front. That's why I recommend Christian, because he does a clue report for us, and we want to talk about what those have, and a flood cert immediately up front. And I know Alan knows this. I know Tom knows this, but those 2 reports are critical in knowledge and moving forward. Flood zones, just to make sure. I remember one guy had his driveway, just the long portion down by the road was in the flood zone, and yet we were requiring insurance, and it just had to be worked through. But let's talk about, and Alan brought it up earlier, what is a CLUE report, Christian? Help our listeners understand that.
So a CLUE report takes the history of the house. It's 7 years back, or 7 or 8 years. And it's going to take the history of the house and the claims that have been made on it. And it's going to come back and tell us the amount of the claims, when it happened, and what type of claim it was. It'll also tell you for the one buying the home, it'll tell their claim history as well. So if they have a bunch of claims that come over, then that could also increase the price of the insurance based off of the buyer's insurance history with claims. But it's really there to tell you about the house, what type of claims have been made on it, and how much has been paid out on it. And that gives you the opportunity to ask about certain things. So I think, Blair, I think we had, what was that, $106,000 fire claim?
$106,000 roof claim and an $88,000 fire claim in the kitchen that was not disclosed by the listing agent. And that made for an interesting conversation.
Exactly, that kind of thing.
Fire agent.
Yeah, fun conversation, right? But that gives you the opportunity to say, okay, how did this happen? What caused it? Has it been fixed? Did you guys go back through and rewire all this stuff? Is it, that kind of thing? Okay, there's a $106,000 roof claim. Did you guys just pocket that money, or is this a brand new roof immediately after this has happened? That kind of thing. So it really gives you a chance to look at the history of the house, at least in the last 7 years, to make sure that things are functioning properly if you need them to be.
Alan, how important is it for somebody to know about, and say you're in the buyer agent position, how important is that CLUE report to you to help you make sure you understand the home they're coming into from your perspective?
Well, you just said it, understand the home you're coming into. So you have a seller disclosure you look at, and generally, you don't rely on those, but I think most people try to have, good faith with what they put on a seller disclosure. Some people just make mistakes, so you have to go above and beyond that. Generally, during the option period, you would have somebody reach out for the CLUE report and get as much information as possible, and that coincides with an inspector doing what they do. And the inspectors, most of the ones I've been around, they get it. They know when they see something it doesn't add up, they'll bring that up. And it's not just they all have codes they follow and things like that, but a lot of them have good common sense. And when they see something, they'll say, you need to check into that. It says it was new, but I don't know. It doesn't seem new to me, or something like that. And yeah, you as a buyer agent, you're trying to do the best you can for a buyer to get, it's a buyer beware type thing.
Yeah.
A seller should disclose, but it's your money. I'm borrowing money to buy my home, and I want to make sure I'm spending my money correctly.
That's great. And I want to ask this basic question. I think it's kind of basic, but I think Christian is going to give everybody an idea. Please put your input, because in pre-approving somebody, we estimate insurance cost. But what is the easiest way to reduce your monthly premium? I mean, we got a lot of first-time home buyers. We got realtors on here. How can we reduce that monthly insurance premium to be able to minimize but meet all the demands of the lender and the homeowner themselves?
Well, just in general, I think higher insurance score is going to help you keep the premium down as low as possible. But really just making sure you're covered correctly. Not, there's some companies that will cover you about twice the value that you need, or 1.5 times the value that you need it. Just because, I don't know if that's a requirement or not, but if you're going in there, you're covering a home way more, you call it, ghost coverage. It's something you pay for, but you'll never see, right? So, because even though, you're covered to that amount, they're only going to repay to build the home that you already had. They're not going to give you a mansion. Insurance is just there to put you back right and make sure you're whole again. So making sure you're covered correctly on the value, and we use a replacement cost estimator for that. So make sure it's not way high. And so what that is I put in when I ask you about your home, I put in all those things into a calculator, and that spits out a number and says, this is how much we think it costs to remove the debris and build the house back if you had a total loss.
And Tom, just for your benefit to go back, and I didn't know this, until, Kristen brought it up. But if you have a good credit score, that helps your insurance score, which helps you with lower premiums. I did not know that.
Yeah.
And Kristen, can you appeal that value? I mean, when they say my house is worth $500,000, well, that's what I'd sell it for, but that includes my lot and the pool and the fence outside. I mean, if it burns down, it would cost me $400,000 to replace it. So is there a way to actually talk to your insurance agent and say, since we're talking about ways to save on our insurance, hey, I'm in the construction business, or I'm in the mortgage, and I've been around houses all my life and done repairs, and own multiple houses. It's not going to cost me $500,000 to replace that house. It'll cost me $400,000.
Yeah, exactly. That's the whole point of that replacement cost estimator, especially now with the values of homes in Dallas and DFW area. That land value just skyrockets. So I can't replace your land. That's going to be there all the time. There's no point for me to cover you at $500,000 if it's going to you've got a 2,000 square foot home. It's going to cost you maybe $350,000 max to rebuild it. Like, what's the point of paying for $500,000 in coverage? And so that's where you really got to get in kind of the nitty gritty. And I don't know if anybody knows this, but it's actually insurance law that and I hate to say this out loud here, Blair, but that the mortgage cannot require you to cover the value, the loan amount of the home. And I've got a nice, pretty letter that I can send to anybody that requires it for you. But it's one of those things where you just you got to talk to someone and say, hey man, like, this is, what kind of replacement value are you looking at here? Are you using custom to luxury designer finishes, or are you using semi-custom or custom features on my home where, I don't need to be paying for $500,000 in coverage?
Sure. Hey, we are on KVGI Media. Welcome Home Radio, August 5th. We do encourage questions, or you can call in. I'm that phone number is going to come up here. There it is, 877-337-5844. Call us in or text us. We'll be glad to get to your question real quick. But I'm a little surprised, Christian, that you did not bring up the easiest way to change your monthly premium, which in my mind, this is my estimation. So correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought a deductible change from a 1% to a 3% to whatever would be probably the easiest way. Is that not true? Or what is the maximum deductible we can go to?
Sorry about that. Yeah, that is probably the easiest way. The higher deductible, the lower your premium. So you've got to be able to weigh, what it's going to cost, monthly on your mortgage bill for a lower premium on your home, or for a lower deductible on your home. But if you increase your deductible, that does bring the home down. The only thing that you see with increasing deductible is you have to weigh the cost of if I have a hail claim and I have a $200,000 home, can I pay $4,000 out of pocket? Because I don't know if everybody's aware of this, but just recently, bill passed, no longer can roofers inflate the cost of repairing a roof to cover your deductible. So you have to pay your deductible to the insurance company. So can you pay $4,000, $6,000, $8,000 out of pocket for a 1, 2, 3, or 4 or 5% deductible? And when you're talking deductibles, 5% of the coverage of the value of your home. So if you're covered at $500,000, your deductible is $5,000. If you go 2% on that, it's 2% of $500,000. So that makes it a $10,000 deductible.
And that goes back to Tom's point about negotiating. Don't cover my land, cover my house.
Yeah, exactly.
Part of the deductible too.
Yep, exactly.
And that includes, from the deductible standpoint, the lender will dictate, or the investor will dictate what the maximum they'll allow, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah, sorry, I forgot to mention that too. So some lenders will take 5%.
Really?
Other lenders will only
really?
Yeah.
Really?
5% of what?
5% deductible. Yeah, they'll take a 5% deductible on the home. And
we just made Tom's day today. He learned something new.
My insurance just dropped a ton.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is you're calling Christian after the show, right?
Yeah. I guess so.
Do it. But yeah, others will only take a 2% deductible maximum. So, it just kind of depends on your loan and how it's being underwritten.
As an insurance guy, what do you see more of?
I really, really push for 1% deductibles, because very rarely do you find someone. I mean, just no one saves. No one saves. You get your money, you spend it. That kind of thing. Unless you've been taught to. So unless you've saved $10,000 for a 2% deductible, or you have a credit card that allows you to go that high, how are you going to pay for that deductible? So I really, really push for 1%. Which is the nice thing about us is, we're an independent with 30 carriers. So very rarely do I have to, with the choice that we have, do I have to sacrifice the coverage or the deductible for the price. So
the median prices are $265 or whatever. What is that a month? Is that roughly on something like that?
Say it again. Sorry.
To go from 2% to 1% a month on your premium.
It's not as big as you think. It's really not as big as you think. You may sometimes you can save, $50, $100, maybe max. I think max probably like $60 or $70 a month. But you got to add that up over the time, and that's not going to get anywhere near to what it's going to cost you on a deductible. $50 or $60 a month isn't really worth saving if you're going to have a hail claim this year.
And I have one more question about roofs too. When you get a new roof put on, and you might buy a better roof, like a rubber or whatever, something that is better, 50-year roof, let's say.
Rubber.
And you guys actually send a rebate out.
Mm-hmm.
So how does that work if you're getting a rebate on the new roof you put on, which is a good quality roof that's supposed to work better with the hail, how does that work as far as where you guys go with replacement and stuff like that?
Yeah. So if you don't have, we'll start with, if you have what you call, just your normal composition roof, and you need it replaced, the company will pay to replace that composition roof to put it back on. If you'd like to upgrade it to what we call a Class 4 roof, which means it's hail resistant, so thicker shingles, then you'll
is that anything like a vaccine?
Shoot. I wish it was, because
hail resistant. I don't believe it.
Well, there's human beings out here that buy that stuff.
Yeah, to be honest, I mean, they work. It's you got. I would say Class 4 Decra roof I see on average lasts a little bit longer than what your normal composition roof. But they'll replace your composition roof. You have to pay for the upgrade for the new roof, for the Class 4 roof. But when you get the Class 4 roof, you have a certificate that says this is hail resistant, and you send that to your insurance agent. And yes, that can give you a pretty hefty discount if it's a new roof, and especially if it's Class 4.
There you go.
Mm-hmm.
See, and that makes sense, because I did put on a little bit better roof when I did it, and I got a nice rebate in the mail,
mm-hmm.
and I got a certificate saying that, and I have used that with insurance people, and they all love that.
Yeah, it's great. I love it when someone says, "Yeah, my roof was replaced last year and it's a Class 4." I'm like, "Let's do this thing."
So
mine's 10 years old now, though.
Yeah,
so I get to ask Alan then. Did that recover the cost of your additional investment with the discounts you got on the insurance? How long did it?
I didn't really have additional cost. This was before you had to have that.
Oh, they gave you an upgraded roof without.
Well, the law that got passed, you can't put the money in.
Okay.
But they did do literally 10 roofs in our subdivision, and we all got the same type roof, and it I don't know, worked out pretty good, really. And I don't know what's going to happen in the future. Hell, tornado might take it, but I don't know how it's going to work now that we have this
Hell,
law.
it might.
Yeah.
Hey, Christian, what about the big deal about packaging? Do your car insurance and your home insurance, is that really a legitimate savings, or is that a come on to get you to put my additional insurance with you for my car?
Oh, no, it's absolutely an additional savings. Yeah. You've got some carriers that don't write auto insurance. They're just strictly home insurance.
Yeah.
And they give you what you call a companion product discount. That can be anywhere from like $200 to $400 off the premium. When it comes to for example, travelers, you have to write on the home. You have to write the auto insurance to get that discount. If not, then it's always going to be more expensive. But yeah, it's a real thing. It's not a fallacy that no one's trying to just pull the hood over you.
Okay, so Flo hasn't been lying to me, is what I'm hearing.
No, she's not. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've kind of got a crush on her.
Just richest woman in commercials history.
She's got to be. Yeah.
Oh my God, she
got
makes
to be the Allstate guy. So.
We're going down a rabbit trail I haven't been down.
Being embarrassed that I have a crush on Flo. Yeah, that is.
Hey, I do want to get to before our time runs out here.
I thought of something. I didn't say it, Tom. I'm so proud of myself.
I'm glad you bit your tongue.
Just type it in the chat.
I'm glad you bit your tongue.
Oh my God.
Hey,
Mr. Thomas, take over.
I want to talk about endorsements. I want to make sure our listeners understand what is an endorsement and what does it do for me. And really all I'm going to put it in simple terms, and you correct me, that endorsement really just customizes that home policy to my needs. Is that correct?
Exactly. Yeah.
Give us some examples.
So there's things you have to endorse on policies, and that's when we're talking about replacement costs. So you want replacement cost value on your contents, which is the things I like to explain. Contents as anything that hits your roof if you put the home upside down. So clothing, furniture, appliances, all your kids. No, it's fine. And so you want replacement costs on those things, because if you don't, then that 2016 TV you bought is it's 2020. We don't know how much it's worth now, but it depreciates over time. So replacement cost gives you brand new items. There's water endorsements. So water coverage on your home is a very, very important thing. Water claims are actually the most common claim we see now. So there's 4 water coverages. You got to have sudden and accidental. And I won't go into what all these things mean because that could take some time. Sudden and accidental, there's water backup, there's water foundation coverage, and there's seepage or leakage coverage. That one's a little tricky. A lot of carriers don't actually cover that, but most of mine do. That means that you have water going on behind the walls or something like that you can't see on a day-to-day basis, causing a ton of damage over time. That gives you a lot of coverage to fix those things going on behind the wall that you can't see.
What is water backup damage? I don't know if I want to ask this question, but I have to since I don't know about it.
Yeah, so that's the messy one. You've ever come home and the sewage is backed up into your tub or out of your pipes, the sewage line back into your home. And the damage from that. Generally, you see about $5,000 or $10,000 in coverage, especially if you have a second story that the sewage is coming out of and coming up down the walls, kind of thing. That's what that's for.
That's a lovely question, Mr. Thomas. Nicely done.
Yeah.
My ignorance.
Yep. Yeah, so that one's a little tricky.
Water's a big deal in insurance. It is. I mean, if you talk about the Clue report, that's happened several times in my career. People have taken a claim and they've not done the work and they didn't disclose it. And it's a water is a big thing. Be it a backyard, backyards when they're built by a home builder, generally they have drainage. Mm-hmm. But after 30 or 40 years of moving fences, moving this and moving that, adding dirt, putting trees and shrubs, then all of a sudden a hard rain, that one of those, big 4-inch rains we get now and then, stuff happens.
Yep.
You see the flooding all the time. Water's a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
It is. You're right.
And you've got to be careful. So when you say flood is any water hitting outside before coming into the home. So if it's outside water, that's flood coverage, and that's not covered on home insurance. So you have to buy that separate policy.
So flood insurance and in-house water damage. Okay.
Exactly. In-house water damage.
You don't have to be in a flood zone either to have that. I mean, that's human. I'm telling you, yards get changed all the time, and
Or grandkids playing in the bathtub and leaving it running while they walk away. So
you're taking a bath in your backyard. There's nothing like that.
Christian, I appreciate you coming in today. And again, it's a blessing to see Tom. It's amazing that he's actually back, and hopefully he'll join us. Hey, I do want to let you know next week we're having on chat with us PK Kelly with Kitchen Tune-Up. Will be here to talk about refurbishing your home, your kitchen, your master bath, or that new office space you need because you're working from home, Tom. More often than not.
So what about my decor?
Yes, we will get PK to give you an opinion on how to frame Abraham a little bit better.
Ooh, I'll put towels over everybody.
Is that Secretariat in the background there?
Actually, no, that is, what was his name?
Man of War?
Man of War.
Okay, that's an acceptable one. Either Man of War or Secretariat. Anybody else, forgettable.
Listen to all the gamblers in the house.
Yeah, what's that about?
Yeah, I mean, you look at a horse picture and you get it in two guesses.
Yeah, don't play poker with Blair. That's just
Mr. Ed. I have no heard about that. Yeah, if it was Mr. Ed, that would have been the third one.
Well, that would have been. That would have been. Guys, I am so thankful again for today. Christian, thank you for joining us, talking insurance, helping us understand a little bit more. And, you know, I hope everybody has a blessed week out there. I'm Blair Thomas.
I'm Alan Pace.
Well, and I'm Tom Holm Wilbur.
Hey, God bless everybody. We'll see you next week.
You guys.